We knew this day was coming. They waited till the end of the year to bring about the FOMO apocalypse, but it's here with Nemesis Retaliation. Welcome, everybody, to the 5 reasons you shouldn't back Nemesis Retaliation. And this one is going to be hard. This one is going to be very, that's what she said. Because it's exciting. I'm very excited about this game. However, I have a job to do, and that is to talk you out of your irresponsible purchases. If you're new to the channel, welcome. This is a series that I've been doing for a while. Whenever a campaign reaches over $1 million on crowdfunding, I put out a video of this sort to talk you out of your irresponsible purchases, but more to make sure that you are equally excited when you hit the back button now as when you get it arriving at your door. We don't want there to be any regrets. We don't want there to be any regrets, especially with the board gaming crowdfunding sphere. There tends to be a lot of FOMO, a lot of fear of missing out, a lot of exclusives, a lot of reasons to purchase right now instead of waiting for Nemesis Retaliation. And I told you I'd steal it from you. That was from one of my patrons. And so that's why this series exists. This series does not serve to make sure that I never get review copies from any of the major publishing houses. No, that's just a benefit. That's a bug, not a feature. No, this exists to make sure that you're making the correct purchasing decision and you're not getting swept up in the marketing, because there's always going to be marketing. There's always going to be this heavy push to push you towards this thing. And it might be a good thing. It might be the thing that is right for you, but it also may not be. So we're going to take a look at everything that Awakened Realms has put out thus far and potentially give you some reasons why maybe you should take a pause. Maybe you shouldn't just get the all-in of everything and spend over $1,000. Because when the add-ons pile up, well, they pile up pretty hard. But first, I do want to talk about what I am excited about, because I am legitimately excited about this. I always do at the end of the year, so probably in about a month, a roundup of all the $1 million Kickstarter campaigns and sort of share my thoughts and rank them how I've been sitting in them. And I can already tell you that this one will probably be number 1 on that list. I'm a big fan of Nemesis. My good friend Zach has the first and the second one. Nemesis, I kind of lumped them together, but Nemesis was on my top 20. Makes my top 20 games of all time. It's a very fun thematic game that tells a rich story. I liked Lockdown better than the original Nemesis. I feel like they have done a great job iterating upon that system, and so I'm really excited to see what lessons they have learned in this 3rd edition, in this 3rd iteration, so to speak, not a 3rd edition, and what's changed, because it is being pitched as some meaningful changes from the Nemesis 1 and 2. Nemesis and Nemesis Lockdown, pretty much the same. I have a big, long discussion with my friend Zach about the two. We had a whole Nemesis day. Want to find out about those differences? There's a link to it in the description below. But it's a fun game. And so I always start these 5 reasons talking about what is exciting, what is personally exciting me about this game. And there's a lot. There really is a lot. Number 1 being the fact that they have a cheaper standalone edition. You can see it's in Canadian for me because I live up in Canada. It's $65 US. 65 bucks US for all the gameplay that you need. They're going with the Standees edition. It's been pledged 425 times. People don't need the minis for this one. And I love that they're giving that option. And honestly, if this wasn't going to be the standard retail edition, they probably wouldn't be giving that option, because it rarely makes sense from a financial point to put that sort of thing out there. Now it's 10% of the mini version, but I love that it's the option. I love that there's an affordable option out there to make it more affordable. Board games are getting more and more expensive, and it feels like Awakened Realms really is fighting back against that. There was no need to do a standee version right now. Absolutely no need. There's no need to do a standee version in retail. But they were giving that option and trying to cut down the costs. And that makes me really excited about it. Honestly, their prices here are good. Their prices here are pretty good. The fact that you can get all 3 of the trilogy for $345 US, 500 bucks Canadian, that's still a lot of money. But you're getting the previous games with stretch goals, which they could easily have gone the come on route when they had Death May Die, Season 3, Fear of the Unknown, which I also backed, because I'm clearly going to be backing this one. Spoiler alert. But they had this bullshit unspeakable blocks, which was the stretch goals for the main game that they were selling for 120 bucks. 120 bucks? 120 bucks US, you can get the full Nemesis lockdown pledge. Well, it's 129. Full Nemesis, the full Nemesis core pledge kit's 125, but still, basically the exact same thing. A full game with additional stretch goals. I think Awakened Realms should be commended for this. I think they absolutely could have gone the other route, and I think people absolutely would have just paid for it, and they haven't. And I think that's really worth commending and makes me excited. Makes me excited to continue to support the company. I'm a big fan of what Awakened Realms does, and I think this is just such a lovely return to form for them. So I'm very excited about that. The other things mechanically that get me stoked about this game, one is the choice that you get before the mission. Before the mission, you can choose your special gear that can give you an advantage. Just seeing a flamethrower there gets me thrilled because I never crafted anything whenever I play Nemesis. I just always kind of forget about it. And the fact that I get the little thing that I always wish I could craft, well, that makes me excited too. Also giving a little bit of a tweak, a little bit of asymmetry in terms of how you build your loadout. That's kind of cool. And the main thing that I really do think is going to be great about this, not the characters. The characters seem fine, but I'm very excited to see what this exploration feels like. The base Nemesis was on a static board. The rooms were mixed up, but you always had sort of the same layout. Here, whenever you travel to another room, you're going to flip up a card, and that card will determine where the doorways are, where the new branching paths are created. And so you get this shifting layout as you progress throughout the game. And really, it's not going to be that impactful, I don't think. You know, there's going to be a line here, a line there. You might have to do a circle around. It doesn't really matter because it's not like the rooms are going to come out in a set order either. And you're going to be confined to a grid so it doesn't sprawl out too much. But even still, that idea of exploration seems really cool. And I also am excited for the shift in gameplay, because there will be a shift in gameplay. There will be hordes of aliens chasing you this time instead of just one. There's going to be 4 in a hallway just waiting to attack. And I really like the little tweaks of stuff that I've seen, where you can shoot blindly into a hallway. I've been watching through the playthroughs and through all the videos that they have available. You can shoot blindly into a hallway, hoping to just wipe out the aliens, or you can take them out one at a time. Those are the main things. The other main thing too, just talking about these cards, is the little intuitive changes that it feels like they are trying to make. This is their third go around in the Nemesis playground, and they know that there's a lot to track. So you can see on every card it says, hey, don't forget to secure this thing, or don't forget to do this action, because the cards interrupt the action, right? And I really love those little reminders. It shows a lovely already care and attention to detail about the flow of play. And similar to, I don't know if we can find it on here, but there's a big old, now we're just going to look at the pictures of the minis really, but there is a big old standing thing that reminds you how to build the bag and how to develop the bag. Developing the bag right here. Oh yes, this standing thing. It's going to just stand on the table. Rather than it was just a little card and you had to go into the rule book, or it was pretty much all on the card. It has the most annoying upkeep part of Nemesis. They're like, okay, listen, here's the thing that you're always referencing. It's a designated thing. And so those little tweaks and those little things make me actively excited for the game too. It feels like they are learning. It feels like they are attempting to make the flow better. And I think that is a lovely, great thing. However, I'm not here to talk to you about my excitement. Clearly it is high. I am here to talk myself and you out of purchasing it, if I can. And again, I don't want to talk you out of it if you're going to be actively excited and if it's going to be a good purchase for you. But I think there are some elements here that are really good, and I think there are some elements here that I don't know how I feel about yet, which we will talk about as we go through these 5 reasons. I think there are reasons not to get it, for sure. Just like I think there are reasons that it's raised almost $4 million Canadian within 12 hours. That seems like a pretty good payday. Pretty good payday to me. So it's time to put your excitement to the test, as it is mine. Here are the 5 reasons why you shouldn't back Nemesis Retaliation, no matter how much you may want to. If you're falling into one of these categories, just this is your check. And so reason number 5 is that it currently feels like there is much more of an emphasis on the co-op experience. It's more of a co-op game than a semi-co-op game. That's what I'm getting from it right now. One of the main reasons why I actively love Nemesis and Nemesis Lockdown is the story that it creates and the twists and turns that it creates. And I think a driving force of that is determined by the objectives, the secret goals, the choices that you get to make. In Nemesis, you'll usually be presented with a choice for the ship and a choice for yourself. The choices for yourself will be of varying levels of interesting. Let's be real. Sometimes it's make sure this player dies, and that player just might die anyway because it's a difficult game, and you just say, okay, well, I won my goal, but you still have to survive. However, there are other exciting goals, such as, hey, make sure that the ship is going to Earth, or make sure that the ship is going to Mars, or make sure that the engines get broken and explode, right? There are these reasons, it gives you reasons to lie to each other. And that's part of the fun. That's part of the fun of figuring out this game is who can you trust? Who is going to stab you in the back? Who is going to betray you? And while we haven't seen many examples of the different objective cards, the way this is built out, and we were talking a little bit about this in the Discord as well, the Room and Board, a Patreon exclusive Discord, that there's a reason why this feels like it might work better in a two-player game than regular Nemesis. And that might be good. Maybe you play only at two players and you want to experience Nemesis, etc. But I think based upon the objectives that I've been able to see, it doesn't seem like there's as much or as many interesting things that you can do to each other. Here, you're exploring the area. You're exploring the area, you're taking down monsters. There's always going to be a public objective, an objective that everybody knows about, which is a change from the main game. And so everybody is saying, yes, I'm committing to helping that objective. And so knowing that there is this public objective that people can go towards, that's kind of how they're trying to create the tension, that you still have the choice between two. You're going to commit to one of your objectives or the other, and one might support the public objective and one might not support it. But it feels like the game is pushing you more towards that public objective, towards more of that co-op game. And that makes sense because there's a lot of enemies that you're going to have to deal with all at the same time. You're going to have to work together to mow down these hordes of aliens, right? So it feels like it is leaning a little bit more to that co-op side and that sort of straight co-op side than the semi-co-op side, which I know and love with Nemesis and Lockdown. And so I think that's worth clocking. I think it's worth identifying, why do you like the original Nemesis? What are you hoping to get out of this one? And I see this being more of like a straight kind of board game than the sort of dynamic, interactive betrayal mystery that the first two could present. So that's reason number 5. Reason number 4 has to do with a very specific mechanism that they've introduced into it, and it is the oxygen mechanism. This right here, you can have oxygen tokens, you can add oxygen to your loadout, and each character, as I scroll up, each character's dashboard has this little indicator over here to show how much oxygen they have. And this will go down as you proceed through the base. There are these few rooms in there, they're life support. You'll be able to turn on the life support in various systems, in sections. See section B, section C. You can turn on the life support in those areas and you won't need to use your oxygen in that base, but you have to find the room to get the life support. And if you don't find the room, well, you're going to be either hoping you find more oxygen or you're going to be running back to start and getting more oxygen and more supplies, and then running back out to do the thing that you want. And so this is the sort of main mechanical flag that I'm not sure if I'm going to enjoy or not. And it depends how it works out in the system, right? I don't want to have to return to base to reload on supplies and go back out. I don't want that constant push and pull, and I don't know if I want that determined by a random element such as finding out the life support or where the life support is for that specific section and system. I like how this seems to be progressing. You've got A, B, and C, and as you go through further and further, and that encourages you to kind of explore up and trying to get more hallways out in other areas. That sounds cool. But mechanically, I'm not sure how it's going to translate. So that's my hesitation there. If you find those things frustrating, if you find the idea of constantly going back to start, rather than exploring something else, maybe this won't hit for you as much as the other Nemesises might. The Nemesi, so to speak, And so that's my flag. I'm not sure I will enjoy the oxygen mechanic, and I can see the potential that it will just be annoying. You never know. You never know. The light mechanic in Lockdown I found worked really well. This feels like a similar take on that things are slowly ticking down. It acts as like the timer and the countdown clock to encourage you, to propel you forward. And I think things should propel you forward in the narrative and not backwards, which is what I'm worrying that the oxygen might do. So let's move on to number 3, and this is a pretty big one. And this needs to be said, and this is specifically for people who automatically go all in. This is for you, because we're talking about stretch goals, and we're talking about how they're generally inconsequential. And not only stretch goals, but stretch goals and add-ons as well. This might make a case to get Nemesis Retaliation, but I truly believe that the best value is going to be here. For sure, it's going to be a popular game. I feel confident that the stretch goals, or the amount of stuff that Awakened Realms will give you, will be equal to the shipping cost. I feel very confident in saying that. That's not a point. It is a point in some other games. That's a very important thing to consider and to see if getting it retail is going to be better. I think legitimately getting it now will be better, even with the shipping cost. But I want to talk about the Collector's Pledge, the all-in. So we have our Nemesis Retaliation Collector's Pledge. We have our Special Edition, which gives you the minis. And we have our great value, the Standard Edition. So Standard Edition, you get standees. Special Edition, you get the minis, right? And they'll show you all the stuff you get in the Special Edition, and that link will be broken. Oh, okay. I thought it wasn't loading. I thought that was purposeful. And then we have the sort of suggested Collector's Pledge, which comes with Terrain Pack for Nemesis, the Acrylic Pack for Nemesis, a playmat, Untold Stories 4, an art book as the additional buys. And for the most part, I think all of those are completely inconsequential and likely shouldn't be purchased. Really. You're not going to use them. So my friend Zach has pretty much everything for Nemesis. Zach went all in. And whenever we're over, sometimes we'll swap out the alien races, but more often than that, we won't. Zach also has the terrain pack for both Nemesis and Lockdown. And all they do is take up more space on the shelf. They provide one more additional thing. And I don't personally find them all that super immersive, even though the doors in Lockdown were pretty good and they were given as a stretch goal, I think. Here, they're asking you to buy these extra door modules that you can open and close your doors depending upon what's happening. There's additional egg modules and corpse modules and some little rovers that won't be impactful to your game experience. Personally, like from my personal experience, I haven't found that these tiny little eggs, these little tokens, the little corpse tokens or anything has really added to the immersion or up-leveled my experience, because that's what it should do. It should improve the experience, right? It shouldn't just be the baseline. It needs to improve the experience if it is going to cost you an extra amount. If the experience will be the same with standees or miniatures, then you should get the standees. If it's going to be exactly the same, then do it. Then go for the cheaper version. Here, I think the difference from getting the game with all the minis and the aliens, you're going to have enough plastic on your board already that you're not going to want to fiddle and find an extra spot and an extra storage space for these additional things and doors. Setup is key, especially for these large games. Having to open another box and just pull out the doors, for me, it really didn't add to the experience, even though they are well made and cool. The same for the Untold Stories. Zach has this as well. It's volume number 4. It's only $9. It's a little comic book, and it gives you a couple of scenarios that seem fun, right? It seems like a fun idea, but it's not something that we've ever really played. I think Zach has read through the books. I don't really care to read through the books whatsoever, right? It comes with a bunch of extra little tokens. Just play the original game and it's good enough. I've never been a fan of art books. I think they're kind of pointless, because when I want to enjoy the art of a game, I just play the game. I don't sit on my couch and look at the art book and think, oh, there, I've gotten my Nemesis fix. I never have to play that game ever again, right? The art is beautiful, but the art is beautiful when it is immersive. But that's just my own personal opinion. I know people like art books, people don't, whatever. But just like, these are the things that that I feel are often thrust upon you. It feels like a crowdfunding starter kit that every all-in pledge has to have an art book, right? And it's pretty minimal for them to print because the art's already been created. And so they're like, all right, well, we'll just make a little bit more money off that art. And I just don't think it's worth it. Honestly, the main thing that might be worth it in this case is the playmat, because you're going to have this structure. And I thought I'd never say that. I'm not a big playmat person, but I can see a justification for it because you are going to have this structure and these different areas, and especially because it has a mechanical impact because of the life tokens, the life support tokens. I could see there being justification for the playmat. I could see it for that one, but again, your table will also be fine. You know, and especially if you're building the board as you go out, and it only is existing, you're not going to be picking up cards or whatever. It's just going to be existing out there. But that's surprisingly the one thing that I thought would be pretty good. The acrylic tokens is a tough one, right? This is something that was brought up in our Discord as well that feels like it would have been a stretch goal a while ago, but it is no longer. I often say that if you're drawing something from a bag continuously, it does make sense for acrylic to be there because your fingers, the oils on your fingers aren't mixing them up. But I feel like with how you use the bag with Nemesis, I don't know, we've played it a bunch and I've yet to see any wear and tear on the actual bag tokens itself. This is something that I kind of just wish was in the main box as well, and it isn't, in order to cut down the costs, and I think that's fine. So, you know, do what you want. $20 for more additional plastic, it doesn't thrill me, right? But when you break down the things that you're getting, I feel like the all-in mentality, and we'll keep going. Let's keep going with the add-ons as well, because here's the stretch goals of Lockdown that I've never played with. Here's a bunch of just different sculpts if you wanted different aliens. There's a bunch of cats. There's just some cats that you can get. 2 cats for $6 each. Like, these minis are expensive, right? And if you throw everything in there, it's going to get a bit extreme. My favorite expansion in the stretch goals is probably the Aftermath expansion, because it comes with a bunch of new characters and they're all really fun to play. Carnomorphs, meh, I can take them or leave them. The terrain expansions, again, meh. The Untold Stories, don't care. Space Cats, don't care. Alien Kings, don't care. Additional playmats, promo cards. You don't need all of these things for the game to be very good. And I know there is this huge purchasing mentality, but like, that's why I've talked for so long about this, and we need to get on to number 2, that just trust me, I never play with the stretch goals. I really don't. Other than Aftermath and the additional characters, I would be fine not having any of those stretch goals whatsoever. Even the additional aliens. It's nice to have the additional aliens as a little twist, but it's not something that I actively play with because the core of the game and the core experience is so satisfying to me. Okay, let's move on. We won't know what the stretch goals are. I'll be looking forward to seeing what the stretch goals are when we get to the end of the campaign. I'll always cover this again when we get to my Monday show, Crowdfunding Countdown, where I look at everything that's leaving Kickstarter for that week, and we'll get a better sense of what's on offer here for the stretch goals. But I imagine the stretch goals will be fun and will feel nice to get, even if you don't really need them, and we'll play with them infrequently. All right, reason number 2 you shouldn't back Nemesis is if you are backing solely based upon the IP. We've gotten this far. You might have learned a thing or two about the game watching this video. Hopefully you did. But you need to have a real conversation with yourself of why. Why Nemesis Retaliation? Why haven't you gotten Nemesis Lockdown yet? Why haven't you gotten Nemesis yet? What is pulling you in about this specific iteration and its changes? Because the IP is so strong here. It is. There's a lot surrounding Nemesis. This is what put Awakened Realms on the map, right? This is their Zombicide. This is their flagship IP that has remained strong and consistent and is very well rated. That alone can drive somebody into purchasing and into being interested and wanting to look into it. But I think backing off of the existing IP is a mistake. And it is the mistake that I want to make. I don't want to purchase this because of the new things. I want to purchase this because it is more Nemesis. So sue me. Please don't. I know I like Nemesis. And so because of that, I was ready to hit the back button before I'd even looked into it whatsoever. I saw 11 in thematic ranking and 25 in thematic ranking and thought, wow, those are high, forgetting that it's actually, 175 overall. And it's outside the top 100, so it must be garbage, right? I mean, Nemesis is number 21, so that's pretty good. But that's something that lured me in. I saw the sun drop and thought, wow, that's really nice, even though this whole section about Sundrop highlights goes against my entire philosophy when purchasing things because it doesn't have the price listed. If you want to know the price for Sundrop, you got to select the reward first, and then you go and you click Sundrop right there, which works out to, if you're doing the collector's edition, which has all the terrain, that will be Sundropped as well, it's another $70 Canadian. If you don't know how to paint, I also don't know how to paint. I just learned from, again, my friend Zach, who's an incredible painter. We put out a very long tutorial, and it's super, super easy to be able to get something very similar to this for 20 bucks and an evening instead of 70 bucks. Just saying. But I saw the beauty of the sun drop. I saw that, and I didn't even get mad about it, where I would have gotten mad if it was in a store and they didn't have the price listed. Anytime I'm out at a market or a store or anywhere, if people don't list the price, I don't even consider it. I don't ask, I don't consider it, I don't let it go into my head because it's probably too expensive for me. And there's a reason why they don't list the price, because they want you to get excited about it and then go, okay, yes, and buy in before actually buying in or making an actual cost evaluation. I was so excited about Nemesis that, and looking at these cool minis, these miniature highlights, that I didn't even care. Oh, although this guy is really literally just the specialist from Etherfields. That's what this guy is. It's almost the exact same sculpt. It's the same face. It's the same glasses. It's with his dream thing. It's probably pretty much the same. But I looked at these minis and you think, wow, those minis are huge and cool, and you don't get a sense of scale at all from them. And these minis are actually going to be significantly smaller than the other things, even in their project story up here, and this miniature scale comparison, which you can also find in their updates, they don't tell you that this guy's only 28 millimeters, and it used to be 22, and then they heard the feedback from the community, and they're like, okay, we'll make the characters a little bit bigger. It's like, okay, well, you haven't changed the status of your aliens, right? That little guy who looks really cool is also probably going to be like this big. Which makes sense. I have no problem with the size of the minis, honestly. I think you're going to get a bunch of them. I think it's going to make more sense because they're going to be on the board. It's like the zombies in Zombicide, right? You're going to have a whole bunch of them on the board at once. You're not going to want them all to be towering and huge. But I also think that by having one big mini, which is probably gonna be like this, yeah, pretty big mini, and not specifying here and purposefully leaving out the dimensions, a scale comparison doesn't matter when you don't have the actual scale that you're comparing. These are the little things, right, that are, I feel, purposefully left out. They're purposefully left out in order to give you a better taste in your mouth, in order to give you that pushing by right now, in order to get you excited and not give you any barriers to purchasing. That's what I'm here for. And for the most part, honestly, I think this campaign is actually quite lovely. They do describe things down later on. Even when they're talking about the trilogy, they say where it falls, that they emphasize that it's thematic and not overall. Their update was pretty decent about this. Actually, I want to check the comments because I wonder how they replied to me yet. They have not replied to me yet. I asked for prototypes that you sent out to reviewers. Do those reflect the changes to the mini size? Will those be the actual size of the minis, or are they proxies? Because I don't know. And you can't really tell in a lot of the previews, right? If that decision was made later, the things that people are playing with don't seem that small. But I also want to know, because they said in some of their updates, oh, we're using proxy minis right now, So I want to make sure that isn't the case as we scroll back through the tons of stuff. Right, but I think this also seemingly is a very important thing that the community has voiced their voice about, because you want to know what the expectation is. I remember when I got Kemet, the older Kemet, it was like, yeah, it's a mini game. I was like, oh, great, can't wait to see them. And then all my little guys are these. I'm like, okay, I guess those are like little mini figures, but for how small they are, I don't see any detail on them. They might as well just be little tokens or cubes, right? And I think this is relevant, especially when there is a standee version, especially when you're deciding if you're going to shell out that money for the extra minis, the extra $60 or $70 Canadian that it's going to cost me for minis. I want to know what that experience will be like. And I want to know if it's going to be too small for me to care about the detail and if I would prefer standees, right? So it's those little things that I feel have been left out that I kind of put in this strength of the IP, because it is a really strong IP, and it is the strength of the IP that stops you from asking those sorts of questions, or at least was stopping me from asking those questions. And I may not have asked them if I didn't have to make this video, to be perfectly honest. And finally, we get to reason number 1, but there is a special reason number 0. But reason number 1 is a question that I don't know yet, and that you need to ask yourself as well, and I am asking myself in this moment: will it be enough to stand on its own? This is the 3rd version of Nemesis. We also have Nemesis Lockdown, which, oh, look at all the beautiful stuff. Beautiful Night Stalkers, beautiful map, beautiful game. We also have the Nemesis Core Pledge. Oh, look at all that stuff. Beautiful pledge, beautiful game. Look at that Queen. Oh, Queen's gonna get you. The thing is, since we got Nemesis Lockdown, or I say we, but since Zach got Nemesis Lockdown, I've just taken Zach's whole collection and pretended it's my own so that I don't have to have that little niggling voice in the back of my head saying, you should get it. Make sure you have duplicates, even though he lives down the street. Since Zach got Nemesis Lockdown, I haven't played the base Nemesis. I haven't. I don't care about playing the base Nemesis because I like Lockdown a little bit better. I do. And so that's also fine. Things can replace other things. They can be the better iteration of it. But I still also want to play Nemesis. I think there's enough like tiny differences between the atmosphere that's provided to make me want to play both, right? But I don't. We will probably play Lockdown over base Nemesis. And so if I am to add a 3rd option to the mix, because I have no space on my shelf, so, you know, it will be at Zach's house. If we're to add a 3rd option to the mix, what's going to get played? Are the little tweaks different enough? You have these different ways to escape. Oh, what's this? You have some sort of escape pods or go hibernate. Ooh, that seems different. You have these very unique rooms like the surgery room that you absolutely have in both of the other versions. Right, the difference here is going to be the feel. The difference here is going to be that stuff that I mentioned previously. The difference here is going to be that it maybe feels a bit more co-op-y, but will that be enough to get it to the table? Or will that be enough for it to supplant the other game? And at this point, I don't know. And I think if you really love the feel and the environment of Lockdown, and that's what you want from your Alien experience, then you may not end up deviating, right? You may not end up getting this to the table really at all. If there's going to be those things impacting your enjoyment, you want the bigger minis, you want the bigger table presence. Well, you're not going to get that with the little small ones. I mean, you probably will. There's going to be hordes of stuff, right? Like, I honestly think that pushback is a bit silly. And isn't my own personal reason, but I understand how some people can be fussed about it. I also think the sort of fuss comes from sort of intangibility of visualization and not being able to envision what the experience will be like, or the fear that it won't be as exciting as your current version. And I think, I don't know, I trust Awakened Realms that that's not a consideration for me. For me, it's a gameplay consideration, right? Will the gameplay be different enough? Will it be different in feeling enough? Or will it feel like just a little bit more dice rolling happens in this one with a few more things on the board? Is it going to be different enough to warrant having all of them? And I honestly don't think so. I don't mind because it's in my top 20 games, right? I'll probably get to it as like a different iteration. But if it's not in your top 20 games, you're like, oh, this might be the different iteration of the system that I love. Yeah, I don't think it's going to be different enough. I don't think it's going to be different enough to change your whole mind or experience about the Nemesis brand. I think it's going to be solid for those who already have bought into the theme, but I don't see this converting that many people to this. So that's number 1. But the reason why I say I don't think in all of this, which is a real legitimate reason, number 0, is because there's no friggin' rule book yet, and there probably won't be in the campaign. That was also in my comment. I said, and also, when is the rulebook going to be? So if I find out any information about that, I'll obviously post it, pin it in a comment or whatever. But there is no legitimate reason whatsoever to not have a prototype rulebook up. They've sent it to reviewers. People have played it. There are rules to this game. Just because it isn't pretty and isn't completely polished yet. I mean, come on, Awakened Realms. We know your rulebooks are never going to be polished, okay? We've accepted that about you, all right? So just give us the rulebook right now, which is what will inevitably be the full rulebook, because it's going to be chunky and hard to get through, and we're going to love the game anyway. But there are specific things that I don't get from previews. There are specific things that I feel are almost conflicting that I've seen in 2 different videos of 2 people playing it in different ways. And so for me as a consumer, usually a no rulebook is an absolute no-go. The only reason why this is a number 0 and it kind of gets a pass, but not really at all, is because I'm familiar enough with Nemesis and I can see the tweaks. But I still want to know more. I still want to know when you're rolling dice, like, how often can you add more than 1 injury cube? You know, there's a whole new murder mechanic where you roll a dice and you have to roll lower than the amount of injuries that the alien has. And so you have a 1 in 8 chance of killing any alien right away. And that just doesn't, I don't know how exciting that feels. You know, it feels like it feels like there's a larger chance I could have one-shotted an alien in the other game. Or at least I could have done 2 damage to it at once, right? Or it feels like that might be very samey as you move forward. But I don't know, because I don't know exactly how it works. I don't know the closet cases. I want to get in the weeds here, and they are barring me from getting into the weeds. They are barring people who are going to be purchasing the product from fully knowing the product that they're going to be purchasing. Like, let's just think about that sentence for a second. You know kind of what you're getting. You know the gist of what you're getting. If you went to a store and you got yourself a tub of cottage cheese-ish, you say, yeah, it's pretty much cottage cheese in there. You'd want to know what was in there. You'd kind of want to know what you were getting and were going to consume. That's how I feel about this. That's how I feel whenever there isn't a rulebook. This is apparently a trend that Awakened Realms is going to start doing, because there wasn't really one in Dragon Eclipse. There wasn't one in Lords of Ragnarok. They don't feel like it's polished. Who cares? Put out what you have to inform your consumers the best way that you can, that this is right for them, so that they can take their own word for it and not your word for it. That's my little tangent for number 0. I think it is always ludicrous that these rulebooks don't appear, that they don't even have a gameplay section on their friggin' board or on this website right now. They don't. They just say, you're gonna be shooting. You'll be shooting. Like, it's offensive to me, and if I didn't have the fondness that I have for Awakened Realms as a company, because I do like the stuff that they produce. Well, no, that's not true. I like Nemesis. And I like Lords of Hellas. I don't really like Tainted Grail. I haven't played ISS Vanguard, and Aetherfields is middle ground. Even still, I do have a fondness for them, because I like their prices. I find that they have fair prices. I think their shipping actually feels reasonable as well, due to the box size of whatever you're going to get. It doesn't feel like they're overtly charging you more, and especially for this trilogy pledge, like, that's going to be a very big box and a very heavy thing. Oh yeah, I thought the Castles of Burgundy was dumb, and Tamashi looked dumb as well. Sorry, Wicked Realms, but like, I still legitimately like love them as a company. I've got like such fondness for them. I think because of their because of how they price things, because of what they give to their backers, it feels like they are really trying to give a lot to their backers, and their campaigns are very engaging. However, this no rulebook thing has got to stop. It really does. It's unacceptable, because you are not doing your job to fully inform your consumers the product that they're getting. So there we go. Those are my 5 reasons, and a reason number 0 why you shouldn't back Nemesis Retaliation. The rulebook thing got me fired up, honestly. This is a legitimate thing for me not to get it. Where am I at right now in terms of purchasing? I'm going to get it. Like, let's be real. I am. I'm probably going to get it. No, it's not a probably. It's pretty much a guarantee. If Zach shows any interest in it, I'm buying it for him to make sure that he has it in the collection, because I want to play it. And all the Nemesis stuff has got to live together, right? It's what can I say? What can I say? I think it is going to be a really fun game. I think the quality of Awakened Realms is going to be huge. I think 65 for an Awakened Realms game, that's the standee version, needs to be celebrated and shouted off the rooftops. What's the price for the special edition? 109, right? It's 109. It's 150 Canadian. Altogether, this would be about 200 bucks Canadian, which for crowdfunding standards, for a big kind of AAA title, if we're going to go in those terms, this would be a AAA title. It could be more than that. Could easily have been 120, you know? Could easily have been 130, like Deceased is trying to be. I think it's 130, right? But they are specifically like 109, around that $100 price, which I think is really great. And I also think this trilogy, like, listen, 675 people have pledged for the trilogy. You better have played Nemesis once. You better know that you like it. I think it is a legitimately good value deal. It will be harder to get that stuff on the secondhand market. The stretch goals, stretch goals don't really add that much for my side of things. However, to get them at retail, to get this at retail and all of them together at retail, let me look. Let me see what's at 401. They're like 150 bucks Canadian each, right? Yeah, 160 Canadian, 144 Canadian. That's 300 Canadian just for the base games. Add in the 152 Canadian for this new version, and then plus tax on that of that 300 price, right? You're pretty much at 483, and you didn't get the stretch goals. So the fact that you can get them with the stretch goals, like so many years after, this is like the most anti-FOMO thing that they've done, and they absolutely could have capitalized on it, and they didn't. And I think that's lovely, and I think it looks fun. I'm excited about the exploration aspect of it. I think that will be different and exciting enough. I trust that the oxygen won't be that annoying, but I don't know, could be. But I just think it looks fun, and I like the brand, and the things that I have seen and the little changes, I go, okay, I'm interested. I highly recommend watching the Man vs. Meeple key differences between Nemesis, because that's honestly the most informative video you will see, and the most information that is out there. Pretty much. David and Ryan do a great job, so go check that one out if you're still on the fence, if you played the original ones as well. Yeah, but I don't know. I'm excited about it. I think I'll probably get it, but only because it is in my top 20 games of all time. So I know I like it. And when you are excited about things and you like things, you can get them. But if you're just riding that FOMO train, like, and if our interests and tastes don't align, you know, like you hear, oh, it's in that person's top 20 of all time. It doesn't even matter. It's a subjective opinion, right? While my tastes are incredible, you might have bad taste and not like the things that I like. And so me saying that shouldn't give you that little buzz of FOMO, which I know it does, because it does for me whenever I hear other people talk about it. I was like, oof, they love it. Even people who I know, like, our opinions are like this. I'm like, well, but it's the top game. I better check it out, because maybe it's the top game. No, if somebody doesn't like the things that you like, it doesn't matter. Anyway, those are the reasons why I'm getting it, and I am excited about it. I might change my mind. I don't think I will. I've been looking forward to this for a little bit, so. But maybe when I'm rewatching this video, maybe I can talk myself out of it. Who knows? Let me know down in the comments if you're getting it, if you're not, what the reasons are. I always find it, convince me not to do it. That'll be helpful, if you can. Convince me not to do it. Or convince me that I'm making the right decision and that I should get more. Either or, I'm excited to hear from you, and it's also great to compile that for everybody else. Thanks for being here. My name's Chris George. I don't have a catchphrase, but I'm gonna have a bunch of teeny tiny little aliens to punch in the face before they punch me in the face, and you know, maybe that'll make me feel like a big man. It's what this video series is supposed to do, and never does. Never does.